Welcome to Adjacent Investigates with Jody Silvey Wynn and Shelly Silvey Grabe. We're asking the questions no one asked us to ask. Diving into debates no one can win. And somehow making it everyone else's problem. Let's investigate.
Welcome back to Jason Investigates. We're deep diving and road tripping with Andrew McCarthy.
We've talked openly about our love for Andrew McCarthy, and now we're deep diving all of his books this time. So if you did not know, after his incredible movie career and becoming a teen heartthrob and all that goes with it, he went into his next chapter of his life and reinvented himself after all the fame. What did we notice, Shelly?
He just kind of like realized he didn't really like being famous
and being up in front and center on a big platform, right? So he decided he wanted to kind of be like go into the next episode of his life.
Yeah, and he just started trying to figure out who he was. He felt like fame was isolating and that he was kind of stuck in time and everybody expected him to be the same way and not change.
That's right. Because I think when people are thrown in or moved into on-stage presence, people don't want you to age. They don't want you to change, like you're saying. They want you to stay the same. And when you do make those changes, they're like, what happened to so-and-so? It particularly happens with women in that arena. They're not allowed to age. And if they do, they have to either age super gracefully or they have to be super thin or super into fashion. They can't just be like in a muumuu, digging up dirt and stuff like that. So
digging up rocks.
Yeah.
I also feel like definitely back then, they were typecast in the movies and typecast in life. It's like, if you ran into Andrew McCarthy, you thought he was his characters. You thought he was that person. I know I have a struggle with that. I think that people are very much like, hey, you were in the movies. This is who you are, and that's all you are. That there's nothing else going on. And
yeah. I always think it's interesting how some celebrities are able to evolve and people are okay with it, and some never get to evolve. I'm just like, serious? Why aren't you able to? Why are we so hard on the people that maybe don't look like they did when they were in their 30s. Like somebody was criticizing Rihanna the other day and they're like, what happened to Rihanna? I'm like, well, she had babies. She grew up. She's not 20 anymore. Things like that happen in real life, and she looks great.
I do think some people lean into it as well. I do think some celebrities lean into this is who I am and this is how I want.
It's their persona, their public persona.
Exactly, a public persona, and then they have behind closed doors. So after all of the movies and everything, he started producing and writing books.
That's right. And I noticed that in his books and his type of writing, it's very reflective about his experiences, about where his life is now. And he shows his soft side, his what he's really thinking and feeling. He's not hiding behind a character. He's putting it all out there in a different way.
Agreed. And so he's written quite a few books, and the first one being The Longest Way Home. And it's a memoir about commitment, fear, and intimacy and travel. And,
I think it's so honest that he talks about fear of settling down and feeling like you've kind of given up. Is this all that's out there for yourself? Definitely having those commitment issues, which you see a lot on TV. Some men having real commitment issues, I never understood that.
Well, and I feel like he talks a lot about this is he wants to be needed and wanted. And when those things shift, when you have a strong partner or whatever, you don't always get them telling you all day, every day, how great and amazing and whatever you are. They learn how to function when you're not there, because he did, he continued to be part of movies and producing and such. And then he also did a lot of travel writing. And so I think that caused a lot of his concern about connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, he openly discusses this, that he struggled with addiction, and, that he started numbing his life. And when he stopped numbing his life, you're having to catch up on all of those numb
things,
and
and things you've been avoiding.
exactly.
I thought it was interesting how he talked about like travel was a way of avoidance, whereas a lot of people say I travel to experience life and to connect with myself and to get to know myself in a deeper way. And it's like, but it can also be a way of not connecting, of avoiding that deeper dive, like, because you're viewing the world through your, own lens. And I thought I've never heard anyone honestly say that, but I could totally understand that, because in travel, you're being an observer of other people and their habits and their environment and their culture. And it can be a way of not using that introspective time to look at yourself.
Well, you're untethered from your life. And so you're like turning your life off for a moment while you're traveling and experiencing, reinventing yourself in that environment. So it's kind of like if you're numbing yourself with drugs and alcohol, and now you're numbing your life at home with travel. Like you're turning that time of your life off.
Or you're completely avoiding having that connection to home,
exactly.
like you're saying. And so it's like a fear of stability. It's a fear of predictability. It's a fear of like being tethered. Because it's like you're avoiding those connections.
You're avoiding connection. And his next book was Brat, and I just recently listened to this one. And, he talks about the whole, his experience of the Brat Pack years and how that really, just the label of Brat Pack damaged careers and, and
they weren't emotionally ready for it.
Yeah.
And then that a lot of people slipped into addiction or slipped into, just other volatile relationships with people and other activities.
And perceived. It was like, because it wasn't like today where they can have their own platform, they can share their real life experiences on social media, and you get your own, they get to tell their own stories. What was happening before, like, social media and everything, you guys, we were, the newspapers and the magazines were deciding who these people were and selling that agenda and selling those stories. So we thought all these kids were assholes.
Well, because back then in the 80s and before, toxic masculinity was put on a pedestal. It was kind of like, that's the guy you want to go for. It was like, you kind of hear like nice guys finish last. And now that narrative is being changed. People are like, I don't want a toxic masculine person with 1,000 red flags. I want to avoid those types of relationships. I want someone who is a man who's been written by a female author.
Well, but I would say that not all of them were toxic masculinity.
No, but it was pushed into the narrative. Right. I'm not saying he was.
Yeah.
I'm saying that back then in the film days, that was like the character people wanted to hook up with, or get in a
But
relationship.
but in Cosmo and all the magazines and everything, they were
They were
exasperating.
pushing those narratives and
Yes, they
exasperating.
were.
You're right.
They were.
And not that Andrew McCarthy was. I think
Or was
it's kind of like when you watch an old 80s show and you're like, boy, that didn't age well at all.
Yes, at all.
Like now there's this TikTok thing where there's this man singing old 80s songs. Hey little baby, is your daddy home? That song. And it's so like they're acting it out and it's so creepy.
It's so creepy. It's
So back
agreed.
then, I mean, the 80s movies, like I don't know if you've watched. I did this with my kids. I watched that vacation movie with Chevy Chase, and it's where they go and see the cousins and they're looking at porn and all this. And it was rated PG, I think, but when I was watching it, I was horrified when I was watching it with my kids because the scales are different. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh,
yeah. It was before they had PG-13,
right.
and a lot of those should have been rated R, even like Goonies and stuff like that. They have a lot of cussing and stuff. It was like, what the heck? But it didn't have nudity. So they didn't, they slid into that PG. Anyway, so
don't you think it's so interesting how we remember so acutely those movies, those songs, that nostalgia of the 80s? Like it's so in our brains still as such like this time of amazingness, and we've kind of like we have a little bit of a haze over it. Like, oh, it's such a great time,
I mean, we watched Goonies back then, and as a kid, under a kid lens, and we didn't think twice about it. We watched Family Vacation with Chevy Chase. We didn't think twice about it. But when you become the mom and you show these to your kids, and you're watching it under that filter, and in today's society, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Like Grease too, pretty deep. All of them. I'm just like, oh wow, we really missed some of these. We absorbed the messaging, but we missed it. You know what I mean? It's like it didn't mean that it meant anything to us. Like when you would hear like Prince's song about Little Red Corvette and all the those things. I'm just like, oh, I did not even know what that song meant. And we would be singing in the back of the car, like talking about like being a sex worker and all the men you brought home and all the.
But we didn't have that knowledge. No. We were not looking at it. We were not listening to that song with that knowledge.
No,
it was just
because we were innocent.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the same with all the John Hughes movies. We were watching them from a different lens. And, I mean, I love the more you know, the better we get. And so, knowledge is power and all of that. But I do think it has kind of stolen some of our joy.
Oh, for sure.
That it's like, oh, well, I never even looked at it that way, and now I have to look at it that way, like the woke lens. And it's like I don't know. We weren't looking at it that way. So and it's just an interesting perspective, you guys, to think about. We didn't know. We were looking through a different lens. And so judge all you want. Y'all can judge and have all your opinions about it. But even this song, like the Christmas song, Baby It's Cold Outside, we didn't know that song was creepy.
I didn't even sing it like at like a
it was a school.
We sing it we'd go to caroling at people's houses.
And so then it's like who's making it creepy? Was it always a creepy song, or was he just being like not. I don't think that was a creepy song. I think he was like, "Please stay. I love hanging out with you."
He was
But they
like,
could have
here, drink more. He kept saying, drink more, drink more.
I mean,
A half a cup more. Let me pour you some more wine so you'll stay longer.
I know, but who's putting that into a creepy sense? I mean,
I
we've
was
all
gonna
been.
say, if a dude won't let me leave and he keeps plying me with alcohol, I would be like, that's creepy. I can ply myself with alcohol. Thank you very much. I don't need you to assist.
I mean, you can take that and go. He was like, "Let's have another beer." I mean,
Well, she kept saying, I really must go. I need to leave. I need to leave, And then he would just be like, no, you got to listen to the song. I mean, look,
I have
I'm
listened
going
to
to
it,
say
but
our lens has been definitely, we are more aware than we used to be. And we've had some life experiences that maybe we did not have um, the knowledge that we have now to keep ourselves as safe as we have kept ourselves now. And we don't want anything to harm our youth. And so we're a little more like, I mean, look, I used to watch Oprah and scare the bejesus out of my kids about escalators and stuff. So I got really over the top with it. But I think it's okay. I like when people put their boundaries up. But you have to respect them always, because your boundary, like Shelly loves calendars. I don't like calendars. It can't just be about me all the time. I had to use a calendar so that I could be a better partner to Shelly. It's okay to it has to be a give and take, right? So setting those boundaries are important, because I need a calendar to figure out what I'm doing. And so Shelly can see, I mean, it's just on everything, but we all learned. And I think his book gives us such insight.
it does.
I thought it was interesting how he talked about the resistance on labels, how he got really tired of people calling the Brat Pack because it ruined careers for a lot of these people.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to work with you. You're in the Brat Pack. We heard that you guys are super entitled. Nobody wants to work with a bunch of entitled little actors, things like that. And so when we have the Gen X or the Gen Y or the labels for your sexuality, the labels for your Christianity, your if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, or this or that. I mean, there's so many labels coming at you, and then it gives people a preconceived notion about where you are and what you stand for, and it's hard for you to create your own identity out of those labels.
And it was so different back then, because it was like media was identifying them, and we were drinking the juice and believing what they said. We didn't know the backstory. We didn't know the side story. We were just spoon fed what to think about these people. And
that happens today, but you can change your own narrative now.
Exactly. You can go connect with them
with influencers. Yeah.
You can go on ChatGPT and say, is this real? And instead of being spoon fed from a group of people that have a goal and objective. I know it still happens. I know it's still, they can change the narrative in your algorithm and manipulate it that way. But this was different. I mean, we didn't have other sources.
That's true.
Sources telling us the same thing. And there wasn't side stories about it. And so anyway.
Yeah, because they wouldn't give the true stories in Teen Beats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, they stuck with the narrative. And they were selling the magazine. So it was about the Brat Pack and how horrible they were. Anyway, he does the audio on his books, and they're fantastic.
Absolutely.
His next book is Walking with Sam, and they do the Camino.
I love this one.
They do the Camino in Spain, and they do the trail.
Yes, the Camino de Santiago across Spain. That sounds so magical. Magical.
It's so
it's him and his son going on an adventure together, and then they realize so much about one another through this adventure. I mean,
going through that transition that so many people are going through this week as their kids graduate from high school or graduate from college, all those big transitions, our elementary school, our kindergarten, making all these big transitions. It's hard. That dynamic change is very hard.
Does. And every stage they go through, the dynamic changes.
Agreed.
And the funny thing is, Shelly, I mean, as your kids become adults, and then you're using that let them theory all the time from Mel Robbins, you're like, okay, this is their life. This is their life. And you're like biting your nails and you're anxious about it. But there's so many times like watching them grow is such a gift,
Yes.
And seeing them become the adult that they are destined to become, or that they're creating for themselves, is so exciting. I love to watch other people's kids growing and changing. But then when you see your kid and then sometimes they're like, that childlike energy comes back in them, or
you see it pop up. You see it, a glimpse of when they were 5, a glimpse of or 8.
It could be like a laugh or something they get, excited about, a relationship that they're in, and you just see their wonder, or when they are finding out something for the first time. It's just such a great gift to us that we get to experience somebody's life like that. It's so cool. But anyway,
it's so powerful.
He did talk a lot about how men struggle to communicate emotionally.
Yeah, and this bleeds into his next book. But I mean, just having that time for him and his son to just be locked in together. And we talk about this with the podcast, is us interviewing somebody for a whole hour or longer and really getting their undivided attention. They're getting our undivided attention, and the conversations that it leads to. You and I are both hikers, and I know that the connection, if we are actually walking close to each other, Coulter's usually about a mile ahead of me, but if we're walking together, that connected time, experience nature together, how powerful that is. And he talks about that in his, on this in Walking with Sam. And it also gave them an opportunity to talk about like their childhood traumas and generational traumas is like affected their family.
You never really understand. Like sometimes you feel like you're in in your life by yourself, and what I mean that like it's your adventure, but not even thinking about how the past traumas informed your mom's traumas informed her on how to be a parent. Her traumas taught you how to be a parent. You're carrying those past generational traumas, and then that's, informing you on how you're going to be a parent. And then you're teaching your kids like about parenting through your lens that had those past time traumas from your parents. It reminds me a lot of like John's dad. His whole family were Methodist ministers up until John's grandfather became a professor, and then Papa became like a professor, and and so it changed. Like everybody for generations were Methodist ministers, and then it took his dad saying, I don't want to do that, I want to do a different way, and then how that was completely different, and then that gave everybody else after that permission to do it their way. And I was like, well, that's a good thing, that people got to choose their own paths. But you never think about that, or how like John's grandfather was super stoic and strong and, wanted, Papa to be super perfect. And so then Papa went completely the opposite, was very do it your way, didn't really, do the same thing as his dad. And so it's just so different, and how it does inform you on how to be a parent. And then talking through those things is so imperative.
Well, but the generational trauma, another perspective in the book Verity by Colleen Hoover,
Yeah.
And the intro, such a powerful intro, is that I am an egg inside of my, I was an egg inside of my grandmother.
Ah.
Like I was an egg, and so
Oh.
everything, yeah.
It's like it's the Russian rest dolls, how it all like take them apart, and each one is flying inside the other. Yes.
So
Yeah.
everything that our grandmother dealt with affects our DNA.
Yes.
It affects physically, it affects our DNA.
Yeah.
And so if she had a lot of trauma, and our grandmother grew up in the Depression, they had one pair of shoes for the entire family of five kids, and her mother had passed away, and she was the oldest, and there was a lot of trauma and just surviving, just finding food and going to work at the whopping age of 12, and how that affected her, and then how that affected our mom, and then that affects us. And then what we don't deal with, how we're carrying our body and is affecting our kids and their kids.
Right.
Like, that is so powerful. That's why genetically, like heart disease and cancer and stuff like that,
it can run in the families because you're basically carrying that trauma with you. I think it's like what you and other friends have said, like when Rudy from one of our interviews in the past said, I want to date a woman who's done the work.
Yeah.
It's an ick to him if she hasn't done the work. Well, or as he's like, I'm doing the work. I want my next partner to have done the work too, or working on themselves.
Agreed. And you want them, now that we know about it, now that we have the knowledge, we want to be as preventative as possible. And our friend Gertie and stuff we talked about is like, the buck stops here in our generation. We know now. We know this is happening. We have to do something to change this. We have to learn how to regulate our bodies. We have to learn how to deal with our emotions so the next generation can do better. And we're already seeing it, like with Danielle Cobb. It's like they're already doing it. It's already happening, and it's so inspiring. And so you just want to see more and more.
I think it's interesting that I was talking to someone, not going to name names, but she said that they had met somebody in their family, and they were really tall, and then they realized that that they are moving into a different height because they have better nutrition. And the following generation didn't have very, very, great nutrition. And so it's like, I'm seeing kids taller and taller and taller and taller. And I'm like, why? Why are they so much taller than their parents? It's because we have changed how we were feeding our kids, or we're changing their atmospheres quite a bit. So I just think it's so interesting. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I did not think about it.
It's so, and that's where knowledge has been powerful. And I think Andrew McCarthy,
he really taps into the emotional wellness and how important it is for men and everybody. But he's speaking to his needs as a man, and how imperative it is, because it's informing the next generation. It's like you're saying, it's a Russian nesting doll. It'll keep growing. Like,
but
I think stay on top of it.
And I think you're 100% right, Jody, is that women have been having these conversations. And I'm not saying just women. I think there's definite... men have been having the conversation, but primarily women have been listening to it.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Men may have been having the conversations, but now what I love about his book, it's so timely, because it's like, hey, it's time for us to talk about men's mental health.
Yes.
Because if we really start tapping into this, it can really affect, it's going to have a positive ripple effect, because as we're seeing the change, like they're saying, like how we're getting to be a little more knowledgeable about how things didn't age well, because men, we're seeing men are learning, like, I don't want to be an aggressive partner.
I want to choose no.
I want to do that. I want to be a partner with my person. I want to have emotional regulation and maturity. It's funny. The more I watch like Summer House, I know this is, but watching Kyle at the age of 40 not have as much emotional maturity at the Summer House, but now watching him in the city, he shows so much more growth and emotional maturity. And I'm like, wow, where you are changes how you behave to such a massive degree. But I'm hearing people say, oh, he needs to work on his emotional maturity. And you're hearing other men say that. And it's like, yes, guys. And then it can, if people start talking about it, think about all the ripples you're affecting. It's like, you could stop domestic violence. You could stop predatory behaviors. You could, I mean, it's so important that what he's doing is attacking such an important aspect of our society. For so long, men are, it's like, deal with it. Put your head down. Do what you got to do. No crying. You don't need friends. You need to do your duty. Do your duty to your family. You don't have time for friends. That's not what it's about. If you're doing that, you're taking away from what you need to do. Yeah. And I'm not saying golf days and all that hasn't been happening. I'm just saying, like, having that emotional maturity and building those relationships and identifying which relationships are actually working for you and which are not.
I agree, And so he went on this walk with Sam, and now he has written the book
that we are going to be deep diving next.
Who Needs Friends? And it is incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And it really, Jody, you're 100% right. But I do think like Adam Grant and others, with Brene Brown and all of them are having these great conversations.
Yes, he's not alone. It's just so important. Yes.
Well, I think he's speaking in a way. I mean, Adam Grant and everything, those are all professors and they've been researching this forever and ever. Mm-hmm. This is a guy dealing with it in the trenches, sharing his heart. Yes. And it's just so friggin' powerful that he opens up and shares it, and it's just so moving, and like the Adam Grant and Brene Brown and everything, all these great speakers, Gabor Mate, I don't know how sharing all of this profound change. The Second Mountain, David Brooks, that's a man, guys. That's a man. And they're telling you about the emotional regulation. They're sharing it. But mostly who's reading those books are primarily women.
And it's so like men need to read these books. Well, and my brother-in-law, he reads all of those books.
And but this book, this is the perfect Father's Day gift, you guys.
Yeah.
Who Needs Friends? Raise your hand, reach out to us, tell us the stories. We're eager to know. We've already started conversations with men. How do you maintain the relationship? How do you keep your friendships alive?
I think another good question is, how do you decide who is a good friend to you?
Yeah.
Because some of your friends could take you down a rabbit hole, and some of them will lift you up, and some of them are not going to BS you. They're going to tell you the truth and and have those honest conversations with you. So.
Well, and in his book, Who Needs Friends, and we'll dive deeper into this, but
yes,
one of the things he talks about, and I've never even contemplated this, we all lean in with women to women. We're all leaning in as we're going through this empty nesting. And Andrew McCarthy does a beautiful explanation on how men feel when they start empty nesting.
Yeah.
And it shook me because I didn't even think of their perspective and how a man is transitioning through this.
It changes their trajectory. Like they have to change their role completely, I feel like.
They do. I mean, everybody does, but there's always been a focus on
how it affects the female, the mom.
And it's like, how does this affect the dad?
Yeah.
He's sitting around with his kids, and what prompted this book and this whole journey for him is that his son goes, "Hey, Dad, do you have any friends?
Yeah.
Do you have any friends?" And he's like, "Yeah, friends? Who? I've never met one of your friends. I've never seen you hang out with the guys. I've never seen you do that. Who are you hanging out with?" Because that's who you're spending the rest of your life with. I get ready to go out on my adventure.
Yeah.
Who are you going to hang out with? Mom's got her own thing going. She's got her whole squad.
Yeah.
But what are you doing, Dad? And he was shook.
Well, and it's so true. But some men do a great job of maintaining relationships.
Yeah.
And some do the complete opposite. They let them go because of their careers or their families.
Yeah.
Or for other reasons. Maybe they just don't feel like that's where they want to spend their time,
Yeah.
But you have to think, like, all community is important.
All community is important.
And if you put all your eggs in one basket and that basket breaks or is no longer intact, then you're going to be alone. It's going to be, and I see it a lot watching people as they age, the circle gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and how important it is to constantly have community. And men, I think they get their need for community. Women, it's on every channel. I'm going on a girls' trip. I'm going to brunch. I'm going to take my kids to the park with my friends. I'm signing up for yoga classes. I'm signing up.
I'm in the PTA. I'm on the board. I'm sitting on. Yeah.
And
I mean, look at the nonprofit.
Yeah, nonprofit. How many friends do we have from just doing charity work?
Well, but and look at most of those boards. It's primarily female.
It's all women, and then the day of the men's show to move the tables.
Exactly. And it's and on the other side, I'm the provider. I'm going to make sure we're financially okay. I'm going to take care of this.
And that's shifting. That's shifting. Because now, because now women are becoming the providers, and men are like, "Well, what am I doing now? Where's my role?" It's shifting.
I
think what he's speaking of is like, it's time to shift.
It's time
and do it now before it's too late.
Exactly. Do it while you have the mental capacity to build that tribe, build that squad, build that community, and maintain it. And on the other side, it's not about just you. Your buddy's going through this too, and they're suffering, and you need to check in. You need to go look out on them. You need to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through this transition. And lean in on it. I mean, that is, and look at this whole thing with Mel Robbins and Lethem and Brene Brown and everything. Women are going into this new career. We've been taking care of the family. We've been home in the trenches, and now we're ready. We're ready to step out and build these careers. There's so many women in their 50s and 60s starting these new careers,
brand new things,
and killing it.
Yeah,
and so.
And then men are like, "Wait, you're not home again? Where are you going? What are you doing? I thought when you retired, you were going to be home and we were going to be doing X, Y, and Z."
No.
Nope.
No.
Now I have my next level, my next thing. So it gets like, it can be very lonely. You got to keep it going. You got to. And I think what it is so few men have daily conversations or texting with their friends.
Yeah.
There's not check-in. There's check-in when there's an emergency or on occasion, I think if they had those daily check-ins, like we heard from Eddie, how he has a daily check-in with his dad. How lovely.
Oh my gosh.
Who's your person? Who's your person?
Who's your squad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are you? And sorry, question to men. If you want to come on and talk about it, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
But how are you taking care of your emotional health? Who is your squad? Who are your people? How do you maintain those relationships? What's your long-term goal? Who's going to be there, for the long haul? Because that's what you need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, so many great things to investigate. We hope you're enjoying this series, and we have more interviews coming your way. So we are going to deep dive a little more the book Who Needs Friends in our next episode, and listen for some interviews that we have with men in our lives and other men and their friendships, because it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. It wasn't even on the radar until I read the book.
Yes. Anyway, we love you guys.
And go follow Andrew McCarthy. He's all over doing a book tour. I'm putting out some great interviews. He has a very funny story about going to hanging out with Liza Minnelli and Sammy Davis Jr. Hilarious. Yeah, good stuff out there.
I love it.
I love you,
Shelly.
Love you, sis.
Yeehaw.